Hey, welcome to chapter 3, session 3 of our creative writing in a niche or young market. So today we're talking about story. And I always find it really hard when the topic is story because story is so broad, right? Story is everything that your story comprises of. Story is everything that your project comprises of. Your project is there because you're telling a story. The writing is telling story. So when we cover story, people are like, how do I know what story to tell? How do I put the story together? It's always very complex because I feel like that really is even should be the the title of this course is story. Like Robert McKee, his title is story. The title of his book is story. And that's because he tells us how to put a story together. He's one of Hollywood's number one gurus, Hollywood's number one script writing guru. This man is amazing. Had the privilege of sitting not with him, at a session that he was running in Johannesburg via Mnet, who sponsored us to go. Mnet is, for those who don't know, one of the biggest broadcasting stations, one of the biggest broadcasters and producers in Africa. So they sponsored us to go to South Africa, which was amazing. When was that? That was like 2011, I think it was. And we were learning story from one of the top gurus of Hollywood. And one of his rules was the story is king, which means it's kind of like the basis. The show must go on. The story is king. The story is bigger than you. The story is even bigger than your audience because the story is the purpose that we all congregate to hear or to see or to watch or to read. The story congregates us. So the story is king. I like to tell this little tale, and I think a lot of this will really be more about the importance of the story, which will make more sense to you as you are crafting, as you are putting stuff together. When you keep going back to the story is king, that will kind of help you stay true to what it is that you're building, and that is the infrastructure. Actually, the story is the infrastructure. It is the the scaffolding on the side of the building, right? It is the what the architects have put together that becomes the scaffolding. That is king. And if you don't get that right, or if you betray it, is what I want to say. If you betray that, then very many loopholes start to happen. You find you've built a house without doors. The doors don't open only one way and they're supposed to open two ways. The windows are askew because you did not build the world and the rule of the story. The story is king. Okay, so once we establish that, let me tell you the little story I wrote, and I say the story all the time because to me it rings very true, and I think it's something that helps guide me back when I start getting lost in the woods of the stuff that I'm creating. So a while ago, I will not say for who, I will not say the title of the show, I was writing this TV series, and in the process of writing this very long series, what the producers wanted and what the writers wanted were not gelling. It did not gel. And it did not gel because from where we were sitting, there were things that we were being asked to do which we did not think were genuine. I mean, were real. We did not think these things supported the series that we were writing. I did not think these things supported the series that we were writing. The producers wanted something else because, of course, they're thinking from a business perspective, and there's many other things that they need to deal with. It's kind of like being a president. There's many things you need to deal with as a president. Me here as the governor of my little world of Mona, I am concerned about the little world of Mona. So what I see and what you see are two very different things. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes you're right, but most times we just need to come together and find a common ground in the best interest of the people, in the best interest, which is now the story. So the writers and the producers were not agreeing. And because we did not find a way to talk to each other in a way that we would listen, writers did what writers do. We became passive aggressive, because this is what we do as writers. We know ourselves. We became passive aggressive, which means we stopped calling out the things that were truly not true to our story, or the story we've been told to tell, and they were not true to our characters, and they were not true to where we wanted to go. But because we became passive aggressive, there came to a point when we would fall in and do whatever the producers wanted. And this is where I use my term talking cockroaches. So you know this thing is not going to work. You know it is not going to work. But because you're so tired of fighting and you don't know how to express yourself as a writer, we decided to be passive aggressive. So I'm like, I'm tired of your stuff right now. So you're the one paying the bills. You want the cockroaches to say what? You want them to talk. They're cockroaches, and you want me to put cockroaches in the house, and then you want the cockroaches to talk. Okay. What are they saying? Aha. Okay. Are they skipping? Rollerblading. Okay. Please note, this is not a cartoon. This is not sci-fi. This is a straight up drama. But we have gotten so frustrated that we've come to the point where if the producers tell us, I want the cockroaches to talk, the cockroaches will talk, and we will hit send and we'll say, pay me my money, and we will go. And anytime someone asks you if you worked on that show, you're like, you don't want to attach yourself to the show, because you know that there was a mismatch in between the pen and the screen. Something went wrong, and you created talking cockroaches in a non-sci-fi, non-fantasy, non-cartoon show because you were just darn tired of fighting. I call it talking cockroaches. So eventually we solved our issues with the producers many episodes down the line, and we got back to the story being king. So when your story is king, you learn to put aside your ego as a writer, because we also have big egos. We play God, right? We are gods of our world. So we have big egos. It's not obvious because a lot of us are not very strong. I mean, not strong, we're strong, but we're not aggressive, right? Because our thing is writing. A lot of writers I find are not aggressive, but we are passive aggressive. Okay, so which means your ego is playing up, and sometimes your ego will be playing up and you don't even know that your ego is playing up, because you're so insistent, no, but this is not where the story is supposed to go. And that is true and fine if you're honoring the story. But if all you're honoring is your ego or your insistence of something happening, then you are failing your story. The story is king. The show must always go on. So in all your writing, you have to be very clear at the beginning. What is the purpose? Why this story? Okay, that is our second point. Our first point is the story is king. The story is king. Okay, queen. The story is queen. The story is God. You are not God. The story is God. So one thing you should never, ever, ever forget as a writer, you are in service to the story. The story is not in service to you. Okay, that's number one. So once you've established that, and number two, then now you ask yourself, the story that I am telling, why am I telling it? I will go back to my book. I will keep going back to my books because, it's very easy for me to compare that. When I started writing V for Visa, the very first one, I really was just writing it to see, do I have this talent I think I have as an author or not? And I picked something that I had experienced, which was trying to get a visa and the visa being denied. And then I picked, and this was how I was crafting my story. So this is something that can help you. How do you craft your story? The first one was, for me, it was, I want to see if I really am an author. The second one was, let me pick something that I have experienced, which means it'll be very seamless for me to create this. I have experienced it. Number three, how do I want this thing to read? At the time, like I said, there was a lot of big romance stories that were happening, like 50 Shades of Grey, Twilight. So there's a lot of big romances that were happening at the time, and I was oscillating between fantasy and romance. I love fantasy because the world is amazing. The world builds, I love it when it's built well. And romance because it's just easy. It's just easy. And I know when I was writing Before Visa, there was so much hecticness going on and uncertainty going on in my life. Remember, this was the point when I could not get my visa and I could not go back to join my husband in the UK. So yeah, I think I did mention this, yes. So I was a lot of hecticness and I just wanted a place to escape. So I knew another reason why I was building the stories, I want the story to be an escape for people. I want it to be an easy read. I want it to be the thing that you want to pick up at the end of the day or in your lunch break, as you're hiding under the desk or, like just kind of like, quickly looking under the desk just to get a quick break, a quick few pages before, or on your Kindle or whatever you're using before you go back to the reality of the world. So I wanted this to be an escape. I was very clear on that. And then I wanted to create characters that we could identify with, real characters. I wanted dreamy characters, but real characters who I look at and say, "Guy, this chick is me." Or, oh my God, this guy, I've met this guy, I know this guy reminds me of. And I knew I wanted it to be something that continued for many series because, again, this is how I prefer to read series in books. I prefer to watch series in continuous serials, ones that continue, every episode is kind of like, it can stand alone, but then it's kind of like all meshed together. This is my preference because it takes me a long time to commit to anything. But once I am committed, I want to go the long haul. So I wanted that kind of story. So I was very clear on those foundations of what my story was going to be. So when you're clear on that, then you then say, okay, so which genre do I want to write in? Again, for me, it was very clear, which was romance. We'll talk more about genre later on. But I was like, what do I want the story to be about? Ooh, yes, it's love. It's about love. So I was clear. I want the story to be about love. And then what else do I want? I want it to be funny. I want the story to be funny. Okay, I put in the funny. I want it to be something, again, an easy read for something people to laugh at. I like humor in whatever it is that I'm watching. I want a little bit of humor. I want to laugh with the character, at myself, at society. I want to laugh. So I knew that I needed that to be there. I knew I needed, I wanted beauty. I wanted big. I wanted grandeur again in my life. My visa was denied because we did not have enough money. So I did not want to go and write about people who don't have enough money because this was my reality at the time and I wanted something to escape. So of course, one of the characters obviously had to reflect me because I was coming from, brokenness. So one of my characters had to reflect me, but then the other character was then the aspirational part of it and the lift, the person I was going to lift the story, which was then my character Darian, who is the billionaire. And Rain, she's not really broke, but in terms of where she wants to be, she doesn't have enough money. So that was kind of like me, though I was broke. So that was kind of like me at the time. And I was clear on all these things that would swirl the scaffolding of what my story would be. Like, this was going to be the world of the story. This was going to be the building blocks of the story. And I was clear on those in the beginning. And from that point, then I could create based on the length of the book, based on the world of the book, based on the premise and the concept of the book, based on the why of the book, based on the emotion that I wanted my readers and my audience, if I ever got any, because at this time I didn't know a single person. Okay, no, I knew at least 6 people would read it, which was my siblings by force, and they read it. So I knew at least these 6 people. My mom and dad know because I'm like, yeah, it's a romance. I'm not sure I want my mom and dad to read it, though my mom did read the book. Yeah, but anyway, yes. So I knew those things that were crucial to me, and then I started to create, and because I already had the scaffolding. Your scaffolding can be anything, by the way. Your scaffolding can be, I want a hard hitting, I want something dark, I want something to jolt people out of their comfort, I want something to be a mine screw, or whatever your scaffolding is, put it there. And remember, it's scaffolding, which means it can be it is a framework, but whatever is inside can change, and the design can also alter as you go along. But you can't alter design that you do not have. And so it's very important to have that particular design, just the scaffolding. It's very important to have that in the first place. And then you can play around with it. So once you have the scaffolding and then you have the plans of the building, then you have a vision of this is where we are going. And this is where the story starts to become king. Because I know writers who write in different ways. There's writers that write and they are God, which means I will take you wherever I want you to go, my people. Okay? And I'm not going to rubbish that way of writing, because I suppose people have their different ways of writing, but I prefer to go the organic way, which means what? I know the general world of where it is that I need to go. I know the general world that I am building. I know the characters. Again, we're going to talk more about character later in a later session. I know about the characters. I know the soul. Actually, this is what I'm talking about. The soul of your story. And that soul comes up as you're putting the scaffolding and as you're putting together all the questions and all the reasons why you're writing this particular story. Why this story? Why are you writing this romance story and not a story about a fisherman in Kisumu? Also a great story to tell. But why is this particular? What is the soul of your story? Once you have the soul of your story, you stop becoming God. And the soul of your story becomes God. And for me, I live by this. And I say this because I will never force the story to go somewhere it doesn't want to go. And I will never force my characters to go somewhere they don't want to go. I was part of a session, a screenwriting session the other day, where one of our mentors is called Ayman. He's an Egyptian called Ayman. This man is amazing, just how his mind thinks. And he said a statement that is something else that I am now grasping onto. He said, create your characters and do not judge them. Allow your characters to do what they're doing without your judgment. And that is kind of like true to how I write, which is I will not force them. I will not force the story to go. And when you do that, I find like the story will consistently surprise you. If your story doesn't surprise you, also for me, and this is a personal thing, I kind of say, well, there must be something wrong. If I, from the concept of what I wanted to say to the end of what I am saying, and it's exactly how I thought it would go, usually to me, that's an indication that there is some magic that I left on the table. And usually that is also an indication that I have forced my hand, what I call the hand of God as a writer, to ensure the story goes exactly where I want it to go. Because every single story for me of beauty and magnitude that I have written or created has come as a surprise to me. The world has remained intact, but what happens between that world at some point has surprised me. So let me, and this is part one. We're going to pick up right now. We're going to pick up on part two, but let me first put this as part one so we can have it in chunk sizes. And just to wrap it up, the story is king. The story is king. And once you have established that and established why you're telling this story and established the scaffolding of your story, then you can start creating the soul, from the soul of what the story is. And that is where your magic happens. This is part one, session 3. The story is king. Finding your story.